Okay, so how have you been? Two things I looked at. First, I looked at Moses in that battle. You know that battle against the Amalekites? It's in the Bible, Exodus 17, when Moses held up his hands and the Israelites were gaining ground. They were prevailing against their enemies. And his hands got tired. You know, it's a human being, so his hands got tired. And then Aaron and Hur came with a stone for him to sit on first. After he sat on the stone, they held his hands. One held the left, one held the right, okay? And then I started to think, as human beings, at some point we're going to grow weary, either from physical fatigue, either from lack of ideas, either from lack of money, either from maybe lack of interest. You know, you just find that you lose your passion. And I'm going to ask you this morning, do you have people like Aaron and Hur holding up your hands? Because as long as they held up those hands, the Israelites were gaining ground and they were defeating their enemies. Who is holding your hands? That's a question you need to ask yourself today, because those days will come when you'll be weary, when you'll be weak, when you'll be tired. Who is holding your hands? And it's interesting because someone could have said, oh, let's re-strategize, you know, with the army. Let's do this, let's do that. But these guys were sensitive. They paid attention and they realized that the answer was in Moses' hands, either being up or down. So they did what was required. That was what was required for them to win the battle. There was nothing extra they were going to do. All that was required was for them to ensure that Moses' hands were held up. And they held his hand up until they finished their enemies in that battle. So who is holding your hands? They need to also know what to do, because if Aaron and Hur did not know what to do, I bet you that battle would have been lost. Not because the answer was not there, but because they did not know and they did not do what was required. So you need to ask yourself, even as I am, do I see the answers? Do I do what is required? Then I went to the other one, 2 Kings 13, where Elisha was telling a prophet to shoot arrows. This one is very interesting. He said in verse 18, says, take the arrows. And he took them, and he said to the king of Israel, strike the ground with them. And he struck 3 times and stopped. And the man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck down Aram until you had put an end to it. But now you will strike Aram only 3 times. And I'm asking you today, how many arrows are in your hands? Many of us fail to see what we have in our hands. It wasn't that there were not enough arrows. Look at this, and that's the irony of life. God is giving us everything we need. Nature has given us, see, there's nothing new you're going to bring. There's nothing new. If you check Facebook, look at it, there's something that was already here. An idea came and they connected the dots. A new car, a flying car, anything you want to talk about, a new city, everything you need is already here. You just need to connect the dots with things that are already on ground. So he was given, say, take the arrows. They didn't tell us if it was 10, 20, 30, 50. Take the arrows and strike the ground. Every day when we wake up, we strike the ground. We have to strike the ground. He struck only 3 times and he stopped. Someone looking outside would think, oh, he ran out of arrows. No, he didn't run out of arrows. He just stopped. So you want to ask yourself today, have I stopped striking the ground? He wasn't short of arrows. Am I short of arrows? What exactly is it that I have that I'm not using? Many of us have opportunities. We have social capital. There's a lot we have. We have stopped striking the ground. And that's why we are where we are. So you need to think about this seriously and do what is required. It was required of the prophet, of the king, to shoot the arrow, to strike the ground with the arrow as many times as possible. But he stopped. Have you stopped? Why have you allowed whatever it is to stop you? You need to realize that you need to keep striking the ground. You're not running out of arrows. You're just stopping. For whatever reason, you need to get back on the game. Get back into the game. Do what you're supposed to do. All right? You have everything you need. Many times we do not pay attention. We're not sensitive. Be like Aaron and Hur. And as a person, you want to ask yourself, who is holding my hands? And as a person, you also want to ask yourself, whose hands am I holding? Because if you're holding hands of fools, then you become a fool. If you're holding hands of wise men, you will become a wise man.